For nearly 3 decades, Tamil Tiger fighters waged a war of terror in Sri Lanka, once controlling the northern and eastern regions. In May this year, the Sri Lankan military finally crushed the rebels, ending one of Asia's longest-running insurgencies. Today, some 250,000 Tamils displaced by the fighting remain in camps north of the country, not allowed to leave. The government says it wants to weed out the remains of its enemy from their midst before resettling most of them by the end of the year. But critics say the detention is inhumane and urge for more transparency from Colombo on the situation in the camps. I'm Chan Tao Cho. In this special edition of 101 East, we ask, what will it take for post-war Sri Lanka to achieve national reconciliation?
This conflict was perpetrated by a group of very extreme terrorists who wanted to dismember our society to fight for a separate state. This was crushed eventually on the 19th of May.
My biggest fear during the war was getting hit by shells. On the 15th and 16th of May, shelling was so heavy we didn't dare leave our bunkers. The bunker became our home. We even cooked inside. People said the army was shelling. We could hear rounds falling around us. No one knew when we would be hit.
Sri Lanka defeated the Tamil Tigers after a long and bloody conflict. But their victory presented new problems. The need to resettle some 300,000 people confined in IDP camps. Most of them ethnic Tamils who fled the fighting. The government also faces widespread criticism over conditions within the camps, which have become almost off-limits to human rights groups and international media. Here, refugees have no freedom to leave.
The key point with regard to the IDP situation is the fundamental rights of those people and their freedom of movement. People kept in conditions of this nature are surely going to end up feeling very bitter and resentful.
They gave us enough food and clothing, but they didn't allow us to leave the camp. We lived in fear, not knowing what to do or when they will release us. People were worried for their children. There wasn't enough clean water.
There's absolutely no truth about mistreatment or ill-treatment. These are Sri Lankan citizens. These are our people. We don't want to ill-treat them and push them once again towards an extremist force.
The treatment of the internally displaced is a litmus test for peace, reconciliation and national unity. If you want to win the hearts and minds of these people, you have to treat them as citizens of this country.
I was terrified the officers might take us away for interrogation. To my knowledge, the authorities took away 2 Hindu priests who had links to the Tamil Tigers. People in the camp tipped off the authorities, who came to nab them.
To his relief, Sambanda Iyer and his family were among the lucky ones that officials cleared for release. A Hindu priest, he spent 3 months in Manik Farm after the fighting ended. It's the biggest IDP camp in the northern district, Vavunia. At the peak of its congestion, Manik Farm alone held more than 280,000 refugees. We'll return to Sambanda Iyer later in our story. The long journey to end the conflict in Sri Lanka took 26 years. Today, the country is at a crossroads. The government may have won the war, but not yet the peace. After decades of ethnic tension between the Tamils and the majority Sinhalese, these remain uneasy times.
We have a golden opportunity as a Sri Lankans. Therefore, Tamils, Sinhala, Muslim All people must all together. We have to build the national unity in our country. This is a big challenge. If we do not use that golden opportunity, we will fail again.
For centuries, tropical Sri Lanka attracted traders and travelers with its diversity in climate and landscape. During this time, it came under Portuguese and Dutch rule, eventually becoming a British colony. The Tamil minority has long lived in the north and east of the island, once known as Ceylon. The British also brought Tamil labourers from India to work in tea plantations, turning the island into a major tea producer. At the time, the majority Sinhalese community resented the British for policies that seemed to favour Tamils. Following independence in 1948, Sinhala nationalism grew, fueling ethnic tension. On-off insurgencies erupted from the 1980s as Tamil militants fought for an independent state in the north and east of the island. Led by the enigmatic Velupillai Prabhakaran, they were the liberation tigers of Tamil Eelam. Declared a terrorist organization by 32 countries, the Tamil Tigers were a formidable fighting force, boasting sea and air attacking capabilities. But fighting the Sri Lankan army, its troops were accused of using civilians as human shields. Prabhakaran was killed in the final days of the war, marking the end of the rebels' loosening grip over their northern stronghold. It's estimated more than 70,000 people died in this conflict. And in the 2.5 years of intense fighting leading to Prabhakaran's death, hundreds of thousands of Tamils lost their homes.
You know, these people have been displaced 25 times. They also lived in a war environment for almost 30 years. They're people who've seen hell, gone through hell, and what's important right now is in the camps that the basic conditions are put in place so that they're strong enough to go back to their homes and start that normal life.
At the end of the war, Colombo promised to release 80% of the refugees within 180 days after screening them to weed out LTTE fighters. UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon visited this part of Manik Farm in May. But there are reports that other sections are not as well maintained. Some are said to be suffering from bad sanitation, malnutrition and poor health care. Now, for the refugees as well as Colombo, time is running out.
They realized there were many deaths happened in IDP camps. Most deaths were occurred because of the pneumonia and hepatitis and the diarrhea. According to the Health Ministry information, there are 47 doctors and 21 nurses, and there are altogether 22 minor staffs. I think it is not enough. Most of those doctors are also intern doctors.
In the capital city of Colombo, we tried every avenue possible to obtain permission to visit IDP camps and verify the situation. But the government continues to deny independent access for any international media. The state-run press is the main source of information for any news on the camps. Government ministers told me they were wary of biased reporting, and we heard a radio broadcast urge all international media be thrown out of Sri Lanka.
Why is it that there cannot be media access to the camps? Is it that there's something to hide? What is it? The lack of transparency in that respect, the lack of access, only fuels speculation.
We have had enough and bad experience. Unfortunately, some of the media, some of the so-called international accepted media have behaved in a manner that they are Sri Lankan, they are like their enemies, personally, for some reason or the other. I don't think it is fair to talk about transparency when nobody had any transparency time that there was terrorism for 30 years. They were never able to step into any of those places, right?
To find out what's happening in the IDP camps, the solution was to travel elsewhere. Without clearance from the Defense Ministry, no one is allowed to fly or drive up north anywhere near the IDP camps. We are now traveling east to Batikalo, where we hear that some families released from the camps have resettled. The 9-hour drive would take us to Sambanda Ayya, the Hindu priest who recently left Manic Farm. We'll hear more of his first-hand account of life in the camp after the break.